Hey, what's happening, YouTubers? We're back with another top 10 list. In today's list, we're going to go over my top 10 Marvel Legends of 2022, comic-based. But before we hit up the top 10 list, y'all know how this works. I got to throw in my honorable mentions first. All right, first honorable mention I want to give is to U.S. Agent. While a lot of collectors would have preferred the 80th Cap Buck, this is still a nice replacement to the previous U.S. Agent that was on the Bucky Cap mold. Plus, it gives an updated U.S. Agent to put on our Thunderbolts team display. Next honorable mention I want to give is to the retro-carded Beast, a much-needed re-release due to the high demand for the original Beast that was released in the Caliban wave 3 years ago. It's exactly the same body mold except the claws and nails are painted on this one. Also, it comes with a lot more accessories than the original release, plus it's got that soft goods lab coat. And the last honorable mention I want to give before I kick off the top 10 list, this might be a controversial one, but I'm going to give it to Siren. And I know, she doesn't come with a screaming head, and yes, I would be upset too. However, there's no denying that Neutra head sculpt looks fantastic, as well as the sculpting of her hair to emulate a windswept look. Plus, it's on the Shriek Buck, so double jointed elbows and knees, and they're all pinless. And if I remember correctly, the Marvel Legends senior designer Dwight Stahl did mention that they sculpted a screaming head, but due to budgets, they had to remove it, so who knows? Later on down the line, they might add it randomly to a different figure, and y'all probably hate me for the fact that I put this on an honorable mention. But then again, it is my list, so f*** it. Kicking off our top 10 at number 10, we have the first appearance, Sabretooth. Now, I know collectors wanted a more 90s-inspired Sabretooth on a bigger buck, say the Omega Red buck, but this is very true to the source material in terms of his first appearance, and I think it looks awesome, especially that head sculpt. At first, people were clowning it, but after having the figure in hand and photographing it, it is an amazing head sculpt. Paul Harding did an incredible job with this. Lasting through at number 9, we have the other Summers brother, Havoc. We've had a couple other Havoc figures from Hasbro in recent years, but this is more true to his classic look. He comes packed with some amazing accessories, and when Hasbro announced a price hike, but it would compensate with giving us more accessories, this was the ideal set I think about. The effect pieces that come with it, in addition to the Build-A-Figure piece, justified the price point for me. But not all figures justify that price point, y'all. I'm just saying, don't take me out of context here. Breaking in at number 8, we have the Bonebreaker Build-A-Figure. Every now and then, Hasbro puts out absolute bangers for Build-A-Figures, and this is definitely one of them. Bonebreaker is such an obscure character and wild when you actually just look at his design. If only the figure had wheels on it that moved, it would have been perfect. But it's still a nice Build-A-Figure nonetheless, and yet another character to add to your Reavers team. Slashing his way at number 7, we have Jigsaw. Now, admittedly, I had no idea who Jigsaw was prior to watching the Netflix series Punisher 4 years ago. Since then, I was low-key hoping Hasbro would make one, but never thought they would due to the nature of his character and being so incredibly violent. And sure enough, they proved me wrong. Granted, this was a Walgreens exclusive. Collectors had ample time to order this and to buy it. This thing was even on sale for $7. But back to the figure. It had a solid amount of weapon accessories, and that head sculpt is easily one of their best I've ever seen. Just the amount of insane detailing on there. I really wanted to put this figure in my top 5, but it being on this outdated suited body, it had to knock it down a few spots. But an awesome figure nonetheless, and much needed in your villains collection, especially if you're a Punisher fan. Wielding Mjolnir through at number 6, we have Thor. While this rendition of Thor is different from what we're normally used to, this Herald of Galactus version is pretty freaking sick. First, he comes with the 2 ravens, Hugin and Munin. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that incorrectly. If I am, let me know in the comments below. But that head sculpt is so dope, in addition to his armor design. And speaking of which, the texturing and sculpting throughout the figure's suit is so well detailed, not to mention the awesome blending of color throughout his cape. A nice addition to your collection, especially if you funded and received that HasLab Galactus. But I didn't, because I still got my Marvel Universe one, because that one's dope. Shoutouts to Dave Vonner for designing that one. Casting spells at number 5, we have the retro-carded Scarlet Witch. While this is essentially a re-release of that Family Matters 3-pack Amazon exclusive, it's more in tune with the classic Scarlet Witch we've seen in the comics with its beautiful redeco. It's definitely a figure that needed a re-release due to the height of popularity Scarlet Witch has been receiving over the past few years, given how much exposure the character has had in the mainstream media, with WandaVision and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So conversely, the Family Matters 3-pack version blew up in the aftermarket. Thankfully, Hasbro gave new and old collectors an opportunity to backtrack and add to their collection with this figure. Coming in at number 4, we have Black Panther from the Atuma Build-A-Figure wave. One of the first figures reusing that new Vulcan base buck, and a good reuse, I must say. I do like the utilization of his cape and how it's engineered on there. You don't have to peg it in. At the same time, it does stay on there fairly well, and if you didn't want it, it's easily removable. While this isn't the first appearance or classic Black Panther suit, it can definitely substitute as one. Seeing as the previous Black Panther comic book figures we've seen are kind of dated in terms of today's standard, this was a much needed upgrade. Cracking into the top 3, at number 3, we have the retro carded Apocalypse. Now you might be asking, why is a reissue in the top 3? It's simple, because it's my fucking list. No, but seriously, growing up, X-Men the Animated Series was my first avenue in the Marvel Universe. And as such, I remember Apocalypse being one of the badass villains. So when Hasbro first released the Build-A-Figure back in 2018, I really liked it, but I just never saw myself completing it because something was off to me. Then the AOA Apocalypse came out in 2020 and I copped it just because it was a more affordable alternative to the Build-A-Figure that had released previously. Now fast forward to 2022, we have this version, and I thought it's perfect. Why, you might ask? It's simple. Remember when I said the BAF release was something off to me when it first came out? Well, it was the metallic blue. And sure, that's how he looked in the comics, but on the show he looked more in line with this color scheme. And while we're at it, thank goodness Hasbro didn't do a cel-shaded version of this, because I think it would have looked terrible. And the cool thing about this version is that it does fall in line and can fit in your cel-shaded / VHS collection. I didn't even mention the additional head sculpt that came with it. It was damn near perfect in my opinion. A solid re-release, if anything, one of the best re-releases this year for the Marvel Legends line. Wielding his magic and climbing in at the number 2 spot, we have the Walmart exclusive Doctor Strange, aka the Bug Nice Strange, since Bug Nice was the first person to reveal this figure. Now where to begin? First, we finally have a classic Doctor Strange figure in the Marvel Legends line, something we hadn't seen since the Toy Biz days. Hasbro has given us different comic book Doctor Strange figures over the past decade, but done really showcasing his classic look until now. The head sculpt work by Paul Harding is absolutely top notch. Factor in that it has a total of 3 head sculpts, multiple weapon accessories, and effect pieces. While this figure was priced closer to the $30 price point, it sure delivered every bang for your buck. If anything, this figure felt more like a deluxe figure than any of the other quote-unquote deluxe figures we've gotten from Hasbro recently. When you look at the totality of Legends that came out this year and the price points, this objectively has to be one of the best. Morphing his way into existence at number 1, we have the VHS X-Men the Animated Series Morph. Doctor Strange was my objective top spot pick, but Morph is my sentimental favorite of the year. And to be honest, if you've watched my list last year, then you would have already known this would be automatic number 1. As I said, sentimental because remember earlier how I mentioned X-Men the Animated Series was my first exposure to the Marvel Universe? Well, one of the first things I wanted when I first started collecting Legends again was trying to complete that Jim Lee / X-Men the Animated Series team. Back when Hasbro announced the first figure of that team, being Jean Grey in the Rocket Raccoon wave, I had a feeling they had something going. And then Rogue got announced in the Juggernaut wave, then Cyclops in the Warlock wave, and so on. If you had asked me back then, I would have never thought that we'd get a more figure from this series. So seeing this is surreal and really truly comes full circle when it comes to me collecting, especially this X-Men team. While I don't really like cel shading or plan on completing the cel shaded team, I made the exception for Morph because, let's face it, he's freaking Morph. But while we're at it, another banger of a head sculpt by Mr. Paul Harding. The figure itself is nice. Compound that with the fact that it's using the new Vulcan buck, and the straps are actually strapped and molded on there, so you don't have to worry about it falling off or falling down. Overall, just a great addition for my collection, and much needed to finally complete my X-Men the Animated Series team. And there you have it, YouTubers, my top 10 Marvel Legends of 2022 comic-based versions, except for Bonebreaker. I couldn't fit his big ass on this display. But this is my list. Let me know what you think in the comments below about my picks. Are any of these on your list? If not, be sure to sound off in the comments below and let me know your picks of this year. And for my spoiler or prediction next year, it really depends because every time I've had a prediction for the last 3 years, Hasbro's ended up making one the next year. In 2019, I said it would be Kang if they made it. They made Kang. The following year, I said if they made Maestro, Maestro was, except Thanos was actually. But I guess it's a testament to the Hasbro Marvel Legends team. They've truly knocked out all the main and core characters. So the next one for me, I would say if they release a Professor Hulk, a Smart Hulk in the comic book version, that'll definitely be my number 1 for next year. But yeah, let me know in the comments below, YouTubers. And like always, if you like what you see, be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for watching.